7:52. Welcome back in. Millennials now make up a third of all U.S. voters. That's according to the Pew Research Center. They roughly tie baby boomers as the largest generation to make up the American electorate. But here to talk about the election from the millennial perspective, we have Amber Muller, a Democrat. She is the president of the student government at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. And then we also have Chris Tomlinson, who is with the Kathy Szeliga campaign, a Republican, a Democrat here with us tonight. So this has been a little bit of a nail biter, even more so than I think a lot of people thought. Chris, we'll start with you. You guys had a tough night with the campaign, Kathy Szeliga losing, but on the other side, you might take home the big prize.
Yes. I think the last results that just came in was Wisconsin, which, I mean, that's a correct Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean, that is a big deal. I mean, that's a part of the blue wall. I mean, the blue wall, it's crumbling like blue cheese, I think. I mean, it's coming down.
Yeah, Amber, it seems like Maryland, it's always been such a blue state, and you just always have these many local victories to lean on. But what's happened nationally that's led to what is getting very close to looking like a Donald Trump presidency?
You know, I've been thinking about this a lot myself. I've been thinking about what draws some of my peers, some millennials, to the Trump campaign. And I think it's the promise of something different. I think they're frustrated with the wrong people. But I think that promise is what's really pulling. And, you know, frankly, Trump is a promoter. He's always been a promoter. In the 90s, when his businesses started to go bankrupt, he sold stock that almost immediately failed. So I think this is him selling bad stock again, honestly. And I don't think he's going to do what those people want him to.
But did Hillary Clinton and the Democrats underestimate Trump as a candidate from the beginning?
I mean, absolutely. I think the Republicans initially underestimated him in the primary.
Yep.
I think the Democrats, they had some polls that were saying that if Bernie Sanders had won, who I initially did support, that he would have had a better chance beating Trump, but no one really thought Trump would get that far. So I think that's how we're in this predicament today.
So Chris, looking at it from the state campaign and then from a national campaign, how important are millennial voters?
I mean, pretty important. I think they're a big element of that silent majority that you keep hearing about this, about these voters that haven't yet come out. I mean, I saw it all the time up in Carroll County. I've been out. I was at early voting for 8 straight days. I was out there all day today from 7 till 7 when I had to come down here. And I mean, you're seeing people come up who have never voted in their lives, people who registered just for one reason, and that was to vote for Donald Trump.
You know, certainly Donald Trump has his supporters who are loud. You hear from them. Do you think that he has a lot of quiet supporters, though, who maybe don't want to admit to people for fear of maybe being public shamed from supporting him?
Absolutely. I mean, I work in Anne Arundel County, and I don't have a Trump bumper sticker on my car. I mean, even living in Carroll County, I mean, I know my parents, they would not put a Trump yard sign in their yard because fear that someone might mess with their house. I mean, even in counties where you would find it a safe zone, I mean, people feared retaliation, and they were scared to admit it. And I think we're starting to see that as the results come in.
And I think that's disappointing in an election all around. I mean, that you feel like you cannot put a sign up in your front yard to support your own candidate.
Well, the hope is that there's going to be some kind of healing process that goes on after all this, but we'll see how that goes. Chris, Kathy Szeliga decided that she would stick with Donald Trump. Governor Hogan, many months ago, said he would not vote for Donald Trump in this election. What was that decision-making process like for your candidate, tying herself to Donald Trump's fortunes as well?
Well, Kathy was kind of in an awkward position, which I would imagine almost anybody running for Congress or Senate.
Because Hogan had endorsed her.
Yes.
But not Trump.
Yes. I mean, I saw it every day. I mean, making calls, meeting voters. I mean, you would get you'd get people that come up and say, "Oh no, I'm not backing Kathy because she's backing Trump." But then you would get people that would come up and say, "Oh no, I heard that she said one thing bad about Trump, so I'm not backing her." So it was a lose-lose. You couldn't make all the Republicans happy, and certainly not Democrats, because I mean, you would need Democrats to possibly win in a state where it's 2-1.
Amber, I want to get back to the millennial vote. What do you think the biggest issues with millennials right now is?
I think it depends on if you're looking at millennial Republicans or millennial Democrats. I think Trump has managed to scare a lot of millennial Republicans into voting for him when it comes to national security, when it comes to dealing with Russia. NPR had a great piece the other day where they were describing our military and compared to Russia's, and we're still the leading nation as far as military is concerned. Russia's in their third year of a recession. You know, Putin's a lot of talk. We don't have to play patty cake with Putin. But so that's what I think the Republican millennials are looking at. And I think that everyone else, the millennial Democrats, they're looking at student debt, they're looking at health care, they're looking at the economic situation in America. I think those are the major issues.
If Trump ends up winning this and becomes the president, where do Democrats go from here? What do you do in that type of environment?
Well, the one thing that we can say for Trump is that he hasn't laid out a lot of particular policies that he wants to enact, and most of them have been very vague anyway. So I think that we encourage him to let the states make up their own mind, and at least here in Maryland, I hope we'll be sitting pretty with our Republican governor who maintained his integrity and not endorsing Donald Trump.
And on the other side of that, if Hillary were to come out and win tonight, how does she get all of the voters? I mean, this was such a divisive election. People are just really one side or the other. How does she get the people who did not vote for her to come and say, you know what, okay, let's back her. She's now the president.
So Hillary Clinton is relentless. She has been for the last 30 years in politics. I truly believe that if Hillary Clinton wins, she will make lives better for every American, whether they like it or not. I think that's how she's run her campaign. I think that's how she's run her life. And so I think we're going to see the proof in the pudding.
All right. Well, Chris, Amber, thank you so much for being here. The millennial vote, huge,
Thanks.
And we are waiting patiently.
Yeah, we'll see what happens
results.
next. Well, the more than year-long race for the White House all led up to tonight.
Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton won many of the states traditionally won by their political parties, but in the all-important battleground states, the votes are still being counted. ABC's Lauren Lister has more.
Tonight, the race for the White House becoming a race for electoral votes. As the votes are being counted, ABC projections revealing a close race.
It's an amazing unfolding of the map as we watch this tonight. I mean, I had thought as the national polls were moving, all the stuff was going in the direction. But what we're seeing is a divergence, as I said earlier, a divergence between sort of the national popular vote and the votes in these states.
It is the most humbling feeling.
After the presidential hopefuls each cast their own ballots this morning,
I'm not nervous. I'm very excited. It's a great opportunity.
voters hitting the polls from North Carolina to New Jersey, some waiting in long lines, and more than 47 million voting early, up from 2012. After more than 500 days on the trail, both candidates making 11th-hour pitches to supporters, campaigning into the early morning hours Tuesday. And as Election Day turned tonight, in New York City, the rivals watching the early results come in just down the street from one another, and their election night campaign headquarters just blocks apart too. This Trump cake spotted getting wheeled into Trump Tower, and noted at Clinton's election HQ, a glass ceiling, the candidate hoping to shatter it.
And Trump, in a Fox News interview Tuesday, still not saying if he would accept the election results. Clinton, meanwhile, preparing two different speeches heading into the night. Lauren Lister, ABC News, Capitol Hill. All right, Lauren Lister reporting the upset of the night may happen on the national level.
Yeah, they haven't had much to celebrate on the state and local level except for Larry Hogan winning the governorship. Republicans tonight in Maryland may be cheering the biggest victory of all. Let's get right to Jeff Hager. He's down at the BWI Marriott where they are watching those returns come in. Good evening, Jeff.
Well, Christian, watching it and listening to it, they've potted up the volume on the screen here as they're watching the results come in so loud you can hardly hear yourself talk. Just to give you an idea of what it's like here, there's still probably well over 100 people here, about 50 in this room. 50 have moved out to a more sedate place. This crowd getting somewhat raucous. I mean, we've heard chants of USA as some of the results come in that favor Donald Trump. A moment ago, they broke into a lock her up chant, even as they were watching her headquarters appear on the screen. And when people talked about people sobbing and people shedding tears at Hillary Clinton's campaign watching event going on in New York, they actually cheered inside the room. So, in a presidential race that has lacked for taste at many different times, we've seen a little bit of that tonight as people starting to get somewhat anticipatory about this being decided in Trump's favor, although it's still not over. They're still watching every result that comes in. They're on bated breath, and then they break out into new cheers. Someone even just brought in a box a minute ago of small Trump hint signs that they're going to start distributing. So at this point, it doesn't look like they have any intention of going anywhere until they see the final result, and one that they've been waiting for here, and that's a Trump victory. That's what they're waiting for. Reporting live from BWI Marriott, Jeff Hager, ABC 2 News.
Yeah, certainly hoping for the big win here.
That's what they are. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff. I mean, there's just a couple more states really that haven't yet reported, but Donald Trump is still very close to hitting that magic 270 number in the Electoral College that would make him the next president.
All right, we're going to keep you updated. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Are your kids bored out of their minds? Looking for something fun to do? All you need is the ABC2 News app. Just tap events in the upper left menu for fun, family-friendly, and even free events all over the Baltimore area. Plus, did we miss something? Get the word out by submitting your own event. It's all on the events page of the ABC2 News app. Check it out now and let the fun begin. Don't have the app yet? Search WMAR in your app store and download today.
The ABC2 Most Accurate Weather Team, giving you a real-time look at the latest conditions with the power of weather bug cameras. From Ocean City to Deep Creek Lake, we track and show you weather as it happens. For Maryland's most accurate forecast, keep watching ABC2.
Right this minute, all the craziest, no way, can you believe they just did that videos, all rolled up into one show. Seriously, do yourself a favor. Watch.
Weekdays at 3 on ABC2.
Count on the night team that works for you. ABC2 News, weeknights at 11.
Get the forecasts you need at the time you want with the ABC2 News app. Watch live streaming weather reports weekdays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Search WMAR in your app store and download today. Summer means savings with BGE Smart Energy Rewards.
Say good morning to you. It is 12:06 now on your Wednesday.
It's Wednesday now.
It's Wednesday, and we continue our election coverage this morning.
Yeah, let's go to ABC2's Nadia Singh. She's downtown as Baltimore City picks a new mayor. Talking to Catherine Pugh, the state senator, who sailed to victory in the general election tonight. Nadia.
That's right, Skylar and Mallory. I've got Mayor-elect Catherine Pugh with me. A big win for you, Mayor-elect. Congratulations. Thanks for being here. Now, I spoke to you last night, and you were very adamant about bringing Baltimore back to a certain place. Tell us about that.
We're not bringing Baltimore back, but moving us forward. You know, the glass is half full, I keep saying that, as opposed to half empty. And what I want to do is focus on neighborhoods and communities. I want to build neighborhoods. I want to build communities. And that means not just housing, but making sure that we make room in our city for everybody. 2 fastest growing populations in the city, 18 to 34, 55 years of age and older. So that middle population, 35 to 54, focus on how do we create the kind of school systems that these folks that aren't coming to our city need in order for them to become a part of our city. But also understanding that the city is not as inclusive or diverse as it should be in terms of opportunity. So when I talk about this being one Baltimore, and I tell folks there's room for everybody in this tent, we have to understand that when we lift the lease, we lift all of us. But we do have 3,000 people sleeping on the streets, and we do have 76,000 people who are unemployed. So we've got to figure out how we get all of that done.
So, Senator P., what do you say to the people that say this city has just gone too far, it's corrupt, we don't have people that are really thinking about the needs of the people? What do you say to those naysayers tonight?
I don't know about those naysayers because 75% of this population voted for me. So they voted for someone who has a vision for leadership, who understands that we can come together, that the city has not gone to pot, and if you really understand where this city is in terms of all of the things that have taken place, we're growing in certain parts of the city. I want us to grow in other parts. You got a great inner harbor, you got great neighborhoods in Canton, Federal Hill, Ashburton, and so I don't know who's saying that or where you're getting that information from, but I can tell you that this is a great city and it's going to be great.
Well, obviously the critics, but 10-1, Democrats outnumber Republicans. How are you going to bridge that gap to make this inclusive?
I'm not talking about just Democrats and Republicans. I'm talking about for all of the races that exist in the city. I'm talking about for all the levels of income that exist in this city. That's what I'm talking about bringing together.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor-elect P. We really appreciate you. There's still a lot of people here tonight celebrating a big victory in Maryland, not only with the Mayor-elect Pugh, but also Congressman Chris Van Hollen, who will be taking Senior Senator Barbara Mikulski's spot next year. Back to you, Christian and Ashley.
Yeah, big win for the Democrats in our state and in the city.
Right, that's what usually happens in Maryland, but what doesn't usually happen is that we get Donald Trump, a reality TV star, major developer, who apparently is going to be the next president of the United States. I mean, it's not
looking that way.
Well, we don't know that yet.
He hasn't crossed the threshold yet. This is Tony Campbell. He's the professor of political science at Towson University. Trump is getting very close. At this point, at 12:09 on Wednesday morning, does Hillary Clinton still have any path to try and win this and come back here late?
I think she's basically got to run a table. But it seems like most of the states that Trump's ahead or is at least leading, then it's going to be about which counties, which precincts haven't reported yet, and you never know. Usually it's the urban areas, and I think that even John King was kind of they go to the big board and they open it up and kind of point out some urban areas that could trail in later. But when you have 100,000 vote lead and you're at 80% of the vote,
it's hard to come back.
Well, the numbers actually will match up. That's all.
Yeah. If she goes on to lose to Donald Trump, looking back, what did she do wrong?
That's going to be interesting post-mortem PhD work for somebody who's going to be getting a doctorate in the next 10 years. What do you I kind of mentioned this before, but you lose to a first-term senator in 2008, and you were supposed to be winning that primary, meaning between her and Barack Obama.
Right.
And then you lose to Donald Trump, who never ran for office before. And it's more of a statement of kind of the movement that happened that kind of took Trump and used him as an instrument of that movement. And then there's also about kind of the negatives that comes along with Hillary Clinton being in the public eye for 30 years. And you mentioned something earlier, a reality TV show. Mm-hmm. I think Donald Trump understood something that basically nobody else understands, is that running for president is a 2-year reality TV show. You're on the air all the time.
And he was.
And what he did was basically took all the oxygen out of the room. There were 17 other people running for the Republican nomination. He took all the oxygen out of the room. And every time that Hillary kind of pushed at him, he deflected, or he talked about the fact that she was crooked. And people were either upset about the system itself, and then they kind of, took that tag that he used and used it for her.
Tony, the way Hillary Clinton became the nominee, she had kind of a surprise challenge from Bernie Sanders. I think, there's at least a few people in our state who might have thought that would have been Martin O'Malley giving her that challenge, but he never really materialized into a candidate who was polling at any great numbers. But she was the nominee. There was all this issue with the superdelegates, and it just seemed like there was some people in the Democratic Party who were going to make it their mission that she was going to be the nominee. And in our state, a couple years ago, we just seemed to have a similar scenario where people said Anthony Brown's going to be the nominee.
Right.
Even though he had Heather Mazur was another challenger at that time, but he became the nominee, and everybody just assumed he was going to win.
Right.
And he lost.
Right.
And here we are again tonight with someone who they just picked almost to be their nominee, and she lost, or is losing right now.
Well,
isn't there a way that they can't they look back and say, look, shouldn't we go through a real process of trying to find a really good candidate to win these things?
Well, that assumes that the political system trusts the voters.
Right.
Because
I don't sense that.
Because the superdelegate system that the Democrats have, because the Republicans don't have that same type of system. Is that basically all the elected officials, all the congressmen and stuff like that, they are automatically seated at the Democrat National Convention. And so, being part of the system, you gravitate towards a person that the system wants, right? And so, I think there's a lot of millennials that were kind of upset.
Exactly.
And didn't vote.
You leave them out,
right?
You don't have the numbers to combat, a man who turned out to be a pretty solid candidate. In the general election setting.
And I think that was a prior surprise, is that maybe Hillary or maybe the Clinton campaign, maybe the Clinton campaign itself underestimated Donald Trump, or underestimated the movement that was behind Donald Trump. And you would have think that if you would have looked at the primary, 17 other guys also underestimated Donald Trump, and they weren't the Republican nominee. So you think you would learn from recent history that you better, take this guy seriously, or at least take the movement that's behind him seriously.
Donald Trump goes on to win. How does he win the trust of the African Americans, Hispanic voters that were very strongly opposed to Donald Trump? How does he win their support at all?
Well, I think you would have had that either way. The question is, what do you do as opposed to what do you say? And I think that. The first thing, 15% of the American people have trust in Congress. If Donald Trump is really serious about changing the system, then you got to deal with term limits. If you have a Republican Congress, Republican Senate, Republican House, still, then you got to deal with term limits.
So maybe he's got an issue that he can actually put.
And you can bring the people together on a system issue as opposed to personal issues. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I would do.
Right.
But, I'm not Donald Trump.
There is only one Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right.
Leading up to this, all the predictions were predicting that Hillary Clinton was going to win this. There were polls. There are people who were Donald Trump supporters out there who not only didn't trust the polls, they felt the polls were being manipulated to marginalize them. There was this mistrust among the Trump voters. Mm-hmm. Now they've almost been vindicated, and they can say, look, those polls were wrong. So what happened there? Was there an issue of like groupthink where everybody just assumed that she was going to win, or what went wrong?
Well, I think the polls themselves was flawed because if you look at it, common sense. Mm-hmm. You had so many, let's say, several millions of voters that didn't vote in any election, let's say in the last 12, 16 years. You're doing a poll of highly likely voters. How can you track that? How can you data set people who haven't voted before?
So typically, what you're saying is typically a poll looks at
highly likely voters. Yeah, previous voters. And so when you're adding a universe of millions of voters, and you're talking about 50 individual states, you're not talking about a national election. And when you take several 100,000 people in a state that haven't voted before, and you add that to the mix, you can't predict that outcome. And so, I've always thought that the polls are 5 to 7 points off anyway. Mm-hmm. But that's actually looking at what happened with Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump throughout the last year of the primaries.
And on Tony's Facebook page, not election day, but Monday, the day before any of this, he predicts that Donald Trump wins the presidency.
Called it, and you put it in writing.
And I put it in writing, and I got a lot of pushback from it too.
You did.
Are you crazy?
Look at
No,
you now.
that's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, thanks for coming
Attorney
in, Tony.
Campbell,
Really
thank
appreciate it.
you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, we want to go to break now. We will have more of your election coverage coming up after this.
Like viral videos? Then you'll love Right This Minute. You never know what you're gonna see. All the craziest, no way, can you believe they just did that videos? All rolled up into one show. Seriously, cool, funny, sweet stuff you can share with all your friends. Do yourself a favor. Watch Right This Minute, the viral video show.
Weekdays at 3 on ABC2. Stuff you want to know.
Let's take a look at what's trending up.
From people who get you. The List, letting you know what's going on around the country.
Let's be friends.
Places to go, things to do, and great deals to find.
Bust out the cell phone and download some apps.
Delivered daily, the way you want it, with flair.
Who wants a makeover?
Flavor.
Tilt up, tilt up.
And fun.
Woo!
There's the news. And then there's The List. Weeknights at 7 on ABC2.
Count on the night team that works for you. ABC2 News, weeknights at 11.
Get the forecasts you need at the time you want with the ABC2 News app. Watch live streaming weather reports weekdays at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Search WMAR in your app store and download today. Summer means savings with BGE Smart Energy Rewards. Are your kids bored out of their minds? Looking for something fun to do? All you need is the ABC2 News app. Just tap Events in the upper left menu for fun, family-friendly, and even free events all over the Baltimore area. Plus, did we miss something? Get the word out by submitting your own event. It's all on the events page of the ABC2 News app. Check it out now and let the fun begin. Don't have the app yet? Search WMAR in your app store and download today.
The ABC2 most accurate weather team, giving you a real-time look at the latest conditions with the power of weather bug cameras. From Ocean City to Deep Creek Lake, we track and show you weather as it happens. For Maryland's most accurate forecast, keep watching ABC2.
All right, Baltimore picks a new mayor, Maryland picks a new senator, and says goodbye to a legend.
They're celebrating downtown tonight as Catherine Pugh is going to be the next mayor of Baltimore City. Now we're looking at the electoral votes coming in nationally. You know, Donald Trump, if he wins the presidency, it looks like he's also going to win the popular vote. He has more total votes nationwide than Hillary Clinton right now, 51 million to her 50 million or so.
Yeah, right now ABC News saying 244 to 209 for
on the Electoral College.
On the Electoral College, exactly.
Right. Chris Van Hollen, as expected, defeats Kathy Szeliga in the race to become the new senator from Maryland, replacing Barbara Mikulski. Andy Harris wins another term as the only Republican amongst Maryland's representatives in Congress.
U.S. House of Representatives Dutch Ruppersberger winning 62% of the votes. We have 89% of the precincts reporting, beating Pat McDonough. He had 33%. John Sarbanes, 63%, beating Mark Plaster with just 34%, 84% of the precincts reporting there.
The son of the longtime senator from Maryland, John Sarbanes. Then Anthony Brown, remember him? Used to be lieutenant governor. He's going to win the seat that was given up by Don Harris. He'll now be a congressman from PG County. He won his race tonight. Steny Hoyer, the minority whip in Congress, he wins again, getting 2/3 of the vote there. That's also a Southern Maryland district that he represents. John Delaney is the incumbent, wins again tonight, defeating a strong challenge from Republican Amy Hober tonight, but he'll be heading back to Washington as well.
Elijah Cummings, 75% of the vote, 98% of the precincts reporting. You can see most of the votes in right now. And I was out there voting today, an hour and a half standing in line out there. A lot of people at my poll today. Jamie Raskin, 59% of the vote.
Jamie Raskin is that's the District 8 where Chris Van Hollen had been the congressman Now he's going to be a senator, so Jamie Raskin, a state senator from Montgomery County, will be replacing him in Congress.
Yeah, and of course, Catherine Pugh, mayoral race. Now, Sheila Dixon, I saw her interview with Dakari, and she said, hey, I'm not saying anything until all the votes are counted. She was a write-in.
Right. This particular, the graphic with 0, she got some votes. It's just that when you write in, they can't count that yet. It comes in as like a write-in vote. And so they're going to have to check that later. And there's the electoral vote. The big surprise tonight, Donald Trump appears to be on a path to become the next president of the United States, right now well ahead of Hillary Clinton in the Electoral College and also in the popular vote, with just a few states remaining that he has to win in order to become the next president.
All right, we do want to head out now to Catherine Hawley. She is at a watch party this evening at Morgan State. Catherine?
Hey, Ashley and Christian. Yeah, we're here at Morgan State University in the theater at the Student Center, and a watch party's been going on here since 8 o'clock tonight, and you can take a look. This room is pretty packed. I'm told there are about 400 students who all have been out here for hours watching the election results coming in. Now, I am joined right now by Rebecca Phillips. She is the president of the Morgan State Political Science Association. They're the ones who put this watch party on tonight. Rebecca, what were you hoping to accomplish with this watch party tonight?
I was hoping to create a safe space for students to come together and possibly mourn or celebrate the results of the election, to learn a little bit more about what was going on and be in a fun environment to do it.
So what is your reaction right now to the way this election is headed?
Voter turnout is so low, and it just makes me want to remind everyone why they should vote in the primary, because we're only here because people didn't vote in the primaries. We're only here because people didn't take the candidates seriously.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. They're going to be out here watching those results come in live until about 1 a.m. And of course, we'll be right back with you guys in a little bit.
All right, well, we want to give you a quick wrap up before we close out our online election coverage. So of the electoral votes, Trump right now, according to ABC News, certainly a nail biter this evening, and a closer race than I think a lot of people thought.
Yeah, some states still have not yet been called. Pennsylvania is one, Michigan is another one. However, as we look at the totals right now, Trump's ahead in some of those states that he needs to win the presidency. We came into the night saying that Donald Trump had a narrow path. He's walked it, you know, and now as we speak right now at 12:30 in the morning, Hillary Clinton's path is almost non-existent. She, in theory, it's not over yet. They're going to wake up to potentially President-elect Donald Trump.
Yeah. And hopefully you will wake up with us on Good Morning Maryland. That runs from 4:30 to 7. We will be with you all the way.
We'll run it down for you. It should be interesting. Thanks for joining us here on the live stream. We'll be back at 4:30 for Good Morning Maryland.